Um, I'm Mary Claire Bloodworth. I am, as he said, the managing director at GroundTruth for our platform team. You heard my colleague Jesse speak earlier this morning. We are a mobile, well, we were a mobile, now we're just a media company that takes real world behavior, turns it into marketing to drive real world results. So for like brands like yours, we focus on audiences, current loyalty, people, basically anyone that's visiting certain brick and mortars or points of interest. And then we reach them across different screens, mobile, desktop, CTV, OTT, and then measure one-to-one visitation. So for European Wax Center, it's a great opportunity. Obviously, it's a good segue into what you do and who you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to be here with you, Mary Claire. My name is Kimberly Odell. I am the Senior Director of Loyalty and Memberships at European Wax Center. If you are not familiar with European Wax Center, it is a people waxing business, not a candle wax business, which I had to kindly explain to my father when I got a new job. So slightly awkward conversation, but in the health and beauty in the health and beauty industry, really looking over our loyalty offerings to our guests, as well as how do we keep them engaged throughout their entire waxing.
Excellent. Could always use a little bit more waxing in our lives. Okay, I wanted to start with an icebreaker, just to make it a little fun. We're like in the middle of the day. So I have four to choose from. So I think I'm just going to start with the most professional one, I guess. Tell us about the first job you ever had. So, like, this could be when you were, I don't know, 14, 13, whatever, and how it shaped you for the position that you're in today.
Yeah, so for me, I worked at a place called Dixieland Fun Park. Probably not appropriate anymore, but it was an amusement park that basically housed, all kinds of rides, things like that. And so I was called literally a party girl, and I would help run your parties that you would bring your children to. And it was a great job because for me, it's all about that guest experience, making sure that you really had a good party for your kids. And we were also one of the only people who got tipped.
Oh,
So you could end up making pretty good money if you understood the exchange with your guests. So for me, it was really understanding, you truly are impacting a guest experience, and so that really helped me throughout the entirety of my career.
great answer. I bet you did really well. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, a little research. Just want to say huge congratulations. One, because you guys made the 2023 Entrepreneur Franchise 500 list as 32 overall. And number one as a franchise for waxing, the waxing category. And that was based on overall performance for strength and stability or brand, sorry, financial strength and stability, unit growth, and then brand power. So congrats are in order there. And you and I had previously talked about how the idea for a waxing center franchising is really new because when we think about, going to get a wax done, some of us would think, oh, I'll just go to the nail salon or I'll go to the mom and pop down the street. So you guys were established 2006, right? So it's been around, right? Why do you think that it's just now starting to take off and you're seeing that success?
Yeah, so really, when you think about it, to your point exactly, if you think about the ways in which people engaged with waxing previously, it was almost a little taboo to say you went to a big box retailer. So you would go to your local nail salon, you might go to a med spa, something along those lines. But the reality that exists is that you don't necessarily know what you're getting if you just go to a nail salon or your local place. And so when it comes to consistency and true training, and having the ability to really trust what you're doing alongside some of our proprietary wax, our clinically proven products, things along that lines, we really saw our guests were starting to really understand the value proposition of being a franchise type model. And so now we've really seen a big boom in terms of not only the health and beauty industry in general, the kind of mainstream idea around waxing, but also specifically for the idea that we have licensed estheticians. We have that really knowledgeable, trained individual so that when you go to get a pretty intimate area waxed, you have someone who's well trained, well established, and knows exactly what they're doing.
Fair. I've had some botched experience. So that is a really good answer and wish that was the case when I was going through puberty. Okay. So taking this growth mindset and market, I noticed that you guys partner with brands like Tweezerman, which my best friend, and platforms like Dreamfield Sports, which is how you guys are collaborating with college athletes, which I think is just really great. Can you talk to us about how and why these partnerships are helping you obtain both new customers, but also retaining customers as well?
Yeah. So when you think about the ways that, because let's be honest, most people aren't thinking about their waxing on an everyday basis. But when you think about the ways in which you can engage the brand across a variety of other brands, Tweezerman is a great example. So when you go to your, Walmart or wherever you buy your beauty supplies, maybe you'll see the Tweezerman brand. And so us being able to not only establish that recognition alongside our own value really adds to the experience and the professionalism that comes alongside both of those industries. And a good example is you may think like, oh, all tweezers are the same,
No,
but they're
they're
actually
not.
not.
Tweezerman
And
is
so when
incredible.
when you really are thinking about, am I using the best product for the service that I'm trying to get or the experience I'm trying to get, having that recognized name alongside ours has really been beneficial. And then just everything that you would anticipate with brand partnerships or any sort of ongoing partnerships with things like we're the official waxing studio of the cheerleaders, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. So if you think about glam, when you think about beauty, probably the Dallas cheerleaders are going to come across your mind. Well, you might think, oh, I want to go to the same place that they're going to get their services done to get the same type of experience that they're getting as well.
Yeah, I like that. It kind of made me think about audiences, because you're putting out like the Dallas Cowboys, and I was thinking how we had talked about targeting men, right? Like you would think when we're thinking waxing that kind of caters more to female usually, but was interested to hear specifically how you're looking to you know drive awareness, drive traffic to your locations for your male audience. And that also makes me think, are you doing anything specific for athletes? So like you said, Dallas cheerleaders, but it made me think like swimmers or I don't know, wrestlers or I don't know, certain types of niche sports out there that may need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for us, because a lot of times I get the question of like, are men waxing? And the answer is yes. It's a small percentage of individuals, but the reality too is that if you think about the ways in which people are taking care of their home care, there are oftentimes a lot of men who are trimming their chest, they're shaving their backs or trimming their backs. And so to be able to move the stigma away from waxing as only a female oriented service is something we're really trying to do to not only hone into the idea that taking care of your body and feeling good about yourself, whether that is through waxing or taking care of some services and things like that, is certainly more acceptable than it ever has been
Yep.
before.
Yep.
But then also the idea that there is a stigma aside with waxing, and waxing is never going to be a painless hair removal service. It's not the truth, but it doesn't have to be the waxing scene that you think of in 40-Year-Old Virgin, right? Where, poor Steve Carell is getting all of his chest hair waxed off. So, for us, it's really trying to help guide individuals to say, hey, there are some services that you might be interested in, and we can actually take care of that not only for you. By managing it on your behalf, but one, we're trained, we know
Right.
what we're doing, and two, waxing is a really great alternative to be able to, instead of just shaving and hoping for the best and getting 8 million ingrown hairs, waxing is, the reality too around waxing that people don't realize is if you stay on a waxing routine, your hair actually grows back finer, thinner, and slower than it does because you're pulling it out by the root. And so individuals who keep up a really strong waxing routine actually find that they have to wax less frequently, and it's also less painful every single time that you go.
Which is a great segue into the very unique marketing cycle that you have. Because if you're not in need of a wax every week, right? Like, I'll be honest, I've been waxed maybe once. It takes a while, right? So, like, what are you doing to stay relevant, engaging through loyalty, right? Like through membership programs and things of that nature that you're in charge of. How are you staying relevant for that consumer during that cycle?
This is a great question. And one of the things for me is coming from a variety of different industries. I've been in QSR, I've been in e commerce. Really being able to manage expectations with frequency is something that's new to me in this type of role. And to your point exactly, you just can't wax what's not there. And so our guests aren't coming back, and we really are reliant on a fairly long life cycle between when you come into the center, you make your reservation, you get waxed, and then that time in between when you actually grow your hair back. And it's all different based off of ethnicity, skin type, hair type, everything related to that. And so being able to understand our guests in the ways that say, hey, we know that there's nothing happening right now except for hair regrowth, and we can't necessarily engage you in another wax, but what can we be doing? How can we be ensuring that in between that time, which could be anywhere from 3 weeks at a minimum all the way to 6 to 9 weeks at a maximum, how do we engage you during that longer life cycle, so that you haven't forgotten about us, but it's also not like, hey, your hair waxing company,
Right.
right? So it's really trying to ensure that we're being thoughtful about, occasional touches to tell our guests, hey, we know you're post wax. What are some of the things that you can be doing to slow your hair growth down? Here's some products, things of that nature, but even just education around when should you be getting your hair waxed. You can wax your hair when it's as short as a grain of rice. And so most people think, oh, well, I'm going to wait a really long time before I go back because I need all the hair to be regrown. But you're actually doing yourself a disservice because it's more painful the longer your hair is. So just little things like that that the average person doesn't necessarily know. And why would they, right? Like, that's not something the average person is going to go out of their way to find out.
Right.
So it's our role and responsibility to try and share with them more information so that they understand, hey, I'm trying to get on a routine. I'm trying to make this something regular for me, but also here's the educational pieces that I wouldn't have necessarily understood to begin with.
What are some of those channels that you found have been impactful and effective when it comes to the education piece, with, I guess, the CRM data that you're using? Is it a different approach for, current customer versus someone that's new? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we're definitely trying to do all of the things that you're mentioning around segmentation, around really being thoughtful on what types of services our guests are getting. And so it's a multitude of channel engagement across whether it's, standard channels like email, SMS, but it's really being thoughtful about the channel that we're targeting them at that time. And then really the way that because we are an in-center and experience, we really are trying to work closely with our franchises and help them understand that our job as the digital side, the digital information that we can share with our guests beforehand is to really prep them, and then once they get into center, that's the time to close on all of the things that we've been prepping them to begin with. So whether it's products, whether it's hey, upgrade to a different package or a frequency package, or whether it's to try a new service, because that's the time in which you're the most interested, but you're at the spot of opportunity. And really that one-to-one engagement, especially again because it's such a personal experience, being able to have a face-to-face conversation with you to say, hey, Mary Claire, maybe you should consider X, Y, and Z because I noticed that you have some ingrown hairs. This product is really going to help you. And you may understand some of that beforehand, but really seeing and trying and testing the products when you're in center is going to be huge for us. So it's that combination of education beforehand and then closing with a personal experience.
And when you're so I'm a customer, I'm in, one of the centers, I'm having conversations with the specialist, and that information then gets passed back to you guys, right? So we talked a little bit about that feedback and how that plays with, customizing that journey, in terms of how you're marketing, right? So tell me a little bit about like what you find has been most impactful there.
Yeah, so for us, it's really just ensuring, again, to the point of what's the right channel and what's the right conversation piece. And then informationally, what can we share with you that's going to be useful to you at the time that it's useful to you? And so, really, I think the biggest part is being able to leverage that in all of our CRM, our data fields. So, a good example right now is we're introducing more marketing led SMS messaging. Right now, we've been more transactional, really focused on, hey, I'm just here to remind you that you have, a service coming up. Please, stay on track. Don't cancel. please show up to your appointment,
Right.
all of those types of things. And so now what we're starting to do is really send individuals down a journey that says, hey, what is your expectation with, do you have a reservation on the books? Yes or no? And so it's just little things like that that help us then prompt to say, yes, I do. Okay, these are the pieces of information that you might be interested in, or how do we prompt you to make a reservation if you don't already have one? And then feeding all of that information back to then say, hey, we saw last time that you got an eyebrow wax. Did you know that we're now offering eyebrow tints? That sounds like something that might be of interest to you. Would you be interested the next time you're at the center? Just little pieces of information that we can feed in that make it feel more personal when you do know that it's more or less an automated experience.
Yeah, I definitely know firsthand because I get those SMSs from my gym. I think it's really helpful. I think it's an effective form personally because I'm like, yeah, I canceled a class. Like, you want to reschedule? I'm like, I guess. So I get it. Okay, so something that I wanted to ask you specifically that I'm just always curious. And by the way, I've learned so much from listening to all of you, and it's such a privilege for Jesse and I to be here today, among so many thought leaders. So really excited and love to be able to incorporate some of the things that you're sharing with us in my conversations. But something I'm interested in learning is what new trend or technology that you've either heard of or seen or read about do you believe is going to be a game changer when it comes to the CRM space?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that it's a game changer per se, but it really is this idea that you can start to be more thoughtful about the times in which you're engaging with your guests. And by that I mean, being able to now automate individuals through really thoughtful, customized journeys that haven't necessarily been the case before. So a good example that I know a lot of individuals are doing, but we haven't introduced yet, is all around replenishment.
Mm.
When you buy products, you're using those products, really being thoughtful about what's that full guest experience during the time in which they're using the products. You need to give them enough time to actually see if it's effective, if it's working, and instead of just immediately hitting them with, hey, it's time to buy your next product. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is really be thoughtful around bringing in those journeys that aren't just based off of time. It's
Mm.
based off of what is a guest's response to these messages. So, kind of feeding them into these messaging journeys that serve a purpose, but then feeding them through the multitude of different avenues that they can go in based off of their responses. So, it's a little bit more call and response than just, hey, it's been 30 days since you bought this product, but
Right.
instead, hey, did you like this product? Yes or no? If you did, start feeding down this journey because we know you're on the right place to potentially eventually get to a replenishment versus, hey, you didn't like it, you didn't respond, you probably aren't going to buy again. So it doesn't make sense for us to re-engage you with a message that actually could be more built for something else, like a, hey, come into the center, or it's probably time for a new wax. Because at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that we're noticing is just general fatigue
Mm.
with all of the communications that we're inundated with at any point in time. We've just naturally seen click rates go down. We've naturally seen open rates inflated because of all of the privacy laws. So it's really difficult to get a sense of whether the guests are truly engaging
Mm.
because they have so many messages to engage with. And especially when you think about your waxing experience, as we think of it here, as like, oh, the most important thing going on in your life, but it's not.
Right.
It's one of many, many things that you're more or less engaged with. And so how do we ensure that you're just getting the right messages truly? And so it's not necessarily a technology, but it's just mostly a new way of thinking that
Mm.
our guests probably don't want to hear from us. So what is that one thing that we want to tell them at the time in which we're telling them?
I love that. Okay. I'm just thinking of how that can be applied in my outreach too. And like that's very helpful. I always like this question. If you could have three wishes, right, granted to you to make your job easier or your campaigns more successful or whatever that is, what would it be? Just like off the top of your head.
Integrated MarTech stick. Yeah, I just, I feel like every single place I've ever gone to, the integrations of trying to get one one platform to talk to another platform to connect to another platform. Like a good example right now is that we use, it's called Zenoti, but we use Zenoti as our point of sale system. Zenoti is fairly popular amongst like health clubs, a lot of fitness places, but it has nearly zero integrations. So what ends up happening is we have to send our data to our Redshift data warehouse, but Redshift doesn't necessarily do what we need it to, so we send it all over to Snowflake. And then we take all of that Snowflake data and then we send it off to Klaviyo, and then we send our Klaviyo data into Attentive. So what ends up happening is I have absolutely no idea if any of these things are working correctly. If there's a problem, I don't know about it until 3 days later because someone's like, oh, by the way, that's broken over there. And so what's usually the frustrating part is that you're trying to do all of these things that are connected in some sense or way, but then there's no way to actually then measure it. And so being able to really truly, someone said, hey, we built this entire thing from scratch and it all connects to each other and it works the way in which it does, is probably, I would use all three of my wishes for that one
I
thing.
think everyone here could agree that we all have similar asks or requests. Efficiency to be able to measure all of this hard work that we're putting in. Is it working? Okay, last question. I don't know how we are in time. We good? One more question, or
I think we
good?
Time. One more question.
All right. Well, I think I just like this question because it's around synergies and how we can learn from supporting one another. So for those of us that aren't part of the CRM marketing team, right? But we have them in our companies. How could or what advice would you give us to help support your team or teams like that?
For me, I think the biggest thing is just understanding that we're more than just marketing. I think what ends up happening oftentimes is people think, oh, you're just sending one email, you're just sending one text message to your guests. But we really are trying to build that relationship. And outside of if you have a true in guest experience, that's the only way they're actually communicating directly with your guest. And so understanding that there's more than just a promotional email. It's more than just, hey, I want to check in with you. It's actually that true relationship building that's going to help build the longevity and brand affinity. And that's the biggest thing, is how you can support it is by just thinking about what you want yourself with your brand. And being able to provide that feedback is essential, not only because it allows for us to understand more succinctly, hey, what are you trying to accomplish? But it helps you understand what are we trying to do on the other side. And there's always the things that are, relative based off of the role that you have. So how is this impacting finance? How is this impacting X, Y, and Z? But I think the biggest thing that I always try and help people understand, especially from the loyalty side, where it's not just a loyalty program, and people get caught up in the day-to-day to say, I'm trying to build, like, I want a customer tomorrow. And that's not what CRM and loyalty does. We're on the long play. I'm ensuring that you not only have a customer tomorrow, but you can count on that customer 3 years from now, 5 years from now, because they love your brand so much and they're so engaged with us that we can know that even if they only come, I always joke because I love Cherry Coke Zero. It is very difficult to find, but every time I find it, I buy it, right? Yeah, it's delicious. And so, but I probably only buy 2, 3 a year. From Coke's perspective, I'm a terrible customer, but I only drink like soda. I only drink Cherry Coke Zero.
Yeah.
So in theory, I'm actually a very, very, very loyal customer, but I don't give you that much revenue. But those customers are really important because they are just as important in some instances because you can count on them year after year after year because they believe in the product, and they'll continue to stay loyal to you.
Kimberly, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Thank you.
I think we're taking.
Yeah,
we're
we're good.
Break. Or do we have questions? Y'all should go up to them during the break.
Yeah.
Attack it one-on-one. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you.